This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Probably the most well-known question in all of Judaism is the question of the Beis Yosef. So after the Syrian Greeks defile all the oil in the Heichal, and the Chashmonaim come back in, and they discover one flask of oil. It only had enough oil to last for one night, and miraculously it lasts for 8 nights. Simple mathematics tells us the miracle then was for 7 days. Why enact an 8-day holiday, an 8-day Yom Tif, to commemorate a miracle that was only for 7 days? So many answers have been given to this question. There's a Sefer Ner Lameya that gives 100 answers to this question. Later, a Sefer was composed with 500 answers to this question. But probably the most well-known answer to this question to me is the most difficult. The Alter of Kelm gives the following answer, citing a well-known narrative in the Gemara Masechta Tainis. The Gemara tells us about the daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was very poor. And one Friday night he comes home, he sees his daughter is very despondent. He says, "Why are you so sad?" She says, "Abba, you know what happened? Instead of lighting with oil, I lit with vinegar. What am I going to do? My light is not going to last for the Shabbos." And Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa uttered the famous phrase, Misha Amar la shemen v'yidloik hu yomer la chometz v'yidloik. He who said that oil should burn, he'll say that vinegar should burn. Don't sweat it, don't worry. Hashem could easily make a miracle. The fact that oil burns itself is a miracle. We just take it for granted. So you didn't light oil, you lit vinegar. Hashem will make a miracle. What's the difference between oil burning, come to think of it, and vinegar burning? Says the Alter of Kelm, we take it for granted that oil burns. We think oil burning, that's supposed to happen. It's only a miracle when vinegar burns. But the truth is, the mere phenomenon that oil could burn, that itself is a miracle. It's just we take it for granted. Therefore, says the Alter of Kelm, 7 days of Chanukah is to commemorate the miracle that the oil lasted an additional 7 days. And 1 day is tacked on to appreciate the miracle that we take for granted that oil burns in the first place. To appreciate nature, to appreciate teva, that even nature is miraculous. This is the well-known answer of the Alter of Kelm. And this reminds me of the famous comments of the Ramban. The Ramban, in his epic words at the end of Parsha Bo, tells us that the purpose of the open miracles is for us to recognize that the hidden miracles, that nature itself is miraculous. The words of the Ramban are, Min hanisim hagadolim hamifursamim, from the blatant, obvious miracles. Adam moida banisim anasam, a person acknowledges the hidden miracles. Shehem Yisoid HaTorah Kula. And the Ramban goes on to say that a person has no share in the Torah unless they recognize that there's no such thing as nature, that everything is miraculous. Ein Bahem Teva Kulam Nisim, it's all miraculous. Rav David Kohen, Rosh Yeshiva of Hebron, says this is the meaning of what we say in the Ma'os Sur. We say B'nei Bina Yemei Shmaina Kavu Shir Urananim. The word bina means special insight, deductive reasoning. What deductive reasoning did the sages who enacted Hanukkah use? They used the following element of bina. They said, from the 7 miraculous days, let's deduce that even the first day was miraculous. So b'nei bina, men of deduction, yemei shmaina kavu shir urananim. They enacted 8 days. This is the famous answer of the Alter of Kelm. And I personally never understood this answer. We're tacking on an extra day, not only to commemorate the miracle, but to appreciate that nature itself is miraculous. Certainly this is a very important and true concept. But truth be told, this could be performed and commemorated any time. Why don't we tack on an extra day for Pesach? 7 days for the miraculous Exodus, 7 days that Hashem made Nisim and Neflois when He took us out of Mitzrayim, and maybe we should have an extra day for the fact that we have water in general, that water is a miracle. We take it for granted, but why don't we tack on an extra day Pesach? We have 7 days for Sukkot. Why don't we add an extra day? 7 days for the miracle of the Anani HaKavod, and tack on an extra day. Clouds itself is miraculous. We take it for granted. But why are we just assuming that nature has to be? So while this is a very true idea, that we don't believe that nature is a force in and of itself, it's all governed and controlled miraculously, divinely orchestrated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But this is a lesson we could focus on any time. It's a day we could add on to any Yom Tif. What does it have to do with Hanukkah? And herein, friends, lies the very secret of Hanukkah. Because I want to share with you the essence of Hanukkah and the essence of what gratitude means. You know, just between us, why do we have a difficult time having gratitude for the simple things in life? Do we walk around with a feeling of inner joy, happiness, satisfaction, gratitude that Hashem gives us air? Most people don't. Most people haven't really spent much time in their life thanking Hashem that they could breathe. Most people don't spend that much time thanking Hashem for water, or thanking Hashem that when they go to work, they earn a paycheck. Why don't we have gratitude for these things? We take them for granted. We, so to speak, say to ourselves, well, that's the way the world works. You see, if you have 2 atoms of hydrogen and an atom of oxygen, you got water. If you go to work, you get a paycheck. If you get married, you have children. We take these things for granted. We write them off as, that's the way the world works. Teva. You know, in Kabbalistic thought, in spiritual thought, there's a concept of the 10 spheros. To keep it very simple, there are 10 emanations, manifestations of the way Hashem operates in this world. There's Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. These are 8 manifestations of divine operation in this world. We're going to focus on the 8th, Hod, because Tikkunei Zayar teaches us that the sphera of Hod is connected to Chanukah. In fact, the Chidah says that one of the reasons why Chanukah is 8 days is because it's connected to the sphera of Hod. Let's explain what the word Hod means. You know, in Lashon HaKodesh, we have 2 very similar words. We have the word Hod and we have the word Hadar. What's the difference between Hod and Hadar? They're very similar. They seem like synonyms, Shemois Nerdafim, but they're not synonymous. There's a nuance of difference between these 2 words. You see, Hadar means external beauty. An esrog is pre-eitz Hadar. It has beautiful color, shape, bumps. We say, Beroiv Am Hadras Melech. The king is honored by an abundance of people. It's an external honor. External beauty is Hadar. Hod is not external beauty. You could have someone who perhaps objectively does not look that pleasant or beautiful, but there's some internal quality that they have. Wisdom, modesty, good character, that although they may not look objectively beautiful, there's an inner splendor that they have, that they are beautiful because of something internal. That's Hod. Hod is internal beauty. And herein lies the difference between the Jewish people and the Yevanim. The Jewish people believe in Hod. We say that which is holy, that which has wisdom, that which has modesty is beautiful. Through the inner dimension comes the beauty. Hod, splendor. Hadar, on the other hand, was the worldview of the Yevanim. The Yevanim said, that which is beautiful, sculpted, exterior beauty is holy. So the Yevanim say that which is beautiful is holy. We say that which is holy is beautiful. That's the difference between Hod and Hadar. But there's an added dimension. And that is, the Yevanim said that we only believe in what we could see. We believe the world runs on Hadar, external phenomenon. There's something called the various systems of the world, the ecosystems of the world, where it rains, and the reason why it rains is because there's precipitation and condensation, and then it rains. The Yevanim only believed in what they could see, what they could weigh, what they could measure, what they could calculate, because they only believed in the external facade of the running of the world, in the kayach of teva, nature, that there are processes in the world, you can measure them, they exist. They're a nation of hadar, external beauty, but we're a nation of haid, internal beauty. We believe that beneath all the various processes is an inner splendor of the running of the world, that Hashem runs the world based on our masim, that just because there are clouds, it doesn't mean it's going to rain. Just because somebody gets married doesn't necessarily mean they'll have children. Just because somebody goes to work doesn't mean they'll get a paycheck. It's only through the chastei shamayim and the rachamei shamayim, and it's through our masim toivim. That's the inner working of this world. You see, in a world of hadar, in a world of teva, there's no gratitude. Why should I have gratitude? I planted, so of course I'm going to reap. I worked, so of course I'm going to have a livelihood. I got married, of course I'm going to have a family. In the world of nature, there's no gratitude. But in the world of haid, of internal beauty, a person doesn't take things for granted. They recognize that just because they plant, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to reap. It's only through the chesed of Hashem. Just because they get married, they need the rachamei shamayim to have children. The world of haid allows for gratitude. In fact, the Vilna Gaon writes, the word haida, the word gratitude, stems from, the root of it is haid, because in a world where the inner workings of the creation of the world are recognized, we don't take anything for granted. Everything is a miracle. Min hanisim hamifursamim, from the obvious miracles, a person comes to recognize the hidden miracles. And therefore, the very definition of Chanukah, haid, the Yom Tov of haid, is to come through the recognition that Hashem made an open miracle for us. The purpose of that open miracle and the objective of Chanukah is to recognize the haid in the world. It is to recognize that even lighting oil itself is a miracle, that we don't take anything for granted, that the world doesn't just run on nature. There's an inner beauty, there's a haid in this world. And haid brings us to the midah of gratitude. Now, on a practical level, it's very important. You know, there's a pasuk, Chanoich lanar al pi darkoi, train the youth according to his way. And we always interpret that's referring to our children, of course. We need to give them chinuch. No, it's referring to each and every one of us throughout our entire lives. You see, we have to constantly train ourselves. We have to constantly practice. We all want to have gratitude. We all want to have grateful. But it's something we need to accustom ourselves to. It's something we need to practice. There's so many things in this world we take for granted. If we would practice even a few times a day, how about before the 3 tefillos of the day, or even once in the morning and once in the evening, and we just stop and accept upon ourselves, twice a day, we're going to stop and think about something, even for a few moments, something that we usually take for granted. Even if every day, let's say we stop every morning, before Shacharis, after Shacharis, during breakfast, before breakfast, and we say, right now, I'm going to thank Hashem for the miracle of water. I wake up in the morning, I'm thirsty, and the fact that Hashem created a phenomenon that he could take 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, and hydrogen and oxygen, they're both gases, neither of which would quench my thirst, and Hashem, the master chemist, mixes them together, and he produces a liquid, and it hydrates me, and all the processes of my body are dependent on that water. If we would even spend a few moments a day and stop and think and say to ourselves and say to Hashem, thank you, Hashem, for water. We just created a revolution in our minds and in our lives because we've focused on the midah of haid. We haven't taken the simple things for granted. And we're practicing, we're training our hearts, we're training our minds not to take for granted something which is very simple. And perhaps in the evening, we could stop and think, Hashem, I got married years ago, and I have children, and I just usually feel entitled to the fact that I have children. But come to think of it, the birth of a child, it's miraculous. Even twice a day, to stop and think of those things in life that we really are appreciative of, but we take for granted. Then that would revolutionize our attitude toward this world. Instead of just saying, well, you turn on the faucet and there's water, or you get married and you have children, because that's the hadar, that's the external processes of this world. The Yom Tov of Chanukah teaches us, the Midah of Hoy teaches us, that everything in this world is a miracle. And the more we practice, we could do it when we're driving carpool. We could say, I make a Kabbalah, that every time I drive a carpool, I'm going to think for 10 seconds about something in this world I take for granted, and I'm going to try to appreciate and recognize what a great miracle it is. Doing that revolutionizes the way we think. Instead of perhaps driving around grumpy, grouchy, thinking about all the things that overwhelm us, we're going to do a 180. We're going to utilize the moment to acquire a new attitude toward life. This world, it's not about the hadar. There are no exterior processes. Everything is the inner beauty and splendor of the miraculous divine intervention of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This will change our attitude toward life, our attitude toward HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and will help us integrate within ourselves the important and the great midah of Hoidah, which we learn from the Yom Tov of Chanukah, which is associated with the midah of Hoid. Wishing everyone a freilich in Chanukah, and may our lives be full of happiness, health, and gratitude. Thank you very much.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.